If you're feeling a little stuck in your bass playing and you need some practice tips, here are 10 for you. Stick around to the end for a couple of my favorites. The first one is quite simple. Just get a drum loop, put it on, and just groove using root notes. I'm going to use E, G, and A. Towards the end, I used another note, and that brings me on to the second tip, which is to pick a mode or a scale and create using that. Every single tip here where I have a backing track or some sort of PDF, I've got a link down below where you can download all that stuff for free. So now I'm going to take an E Dorian mode and expand a little bit on what I did before. Now there I was using Dorian, which is a lovely sounding mode, the second of the major scale, and also minor pentatonic because that's what comes from that mode. So all that kind of stuff. That was just using two scales to become more creative and to play in time with the drum loop. Now I don't have any channel sponsors or brand deals, so just allow me a quick moment to plug my courses. If you want to understand more about music theory, more about scales and how to use them, then I have a music theory course. It covers years of material, and that's a really comprehensive one. Or I've got a beginner's course, takes you from complete beginner to sort of intermediate. Then I've got a funk bass course, a blues course, and a soul R&B Motown. So if you're stuck for things to play, all of those will help you. Back to the lesson. You can use any scale you like. Let me use the same drum loop, and I'll now use an E major pentatonic. I'm not doing anything revolutionary there. I'm just playing around with one scale. I'm not trying to write the world's greatest bass line. I'm just trying to have fun and increase my creativity. Here's a hand coordination exercise that works on harmonizing a major scale, giving you arpeggios that you can use in bass lines, and along with that, the mode for each one. Here's how it goes. I reckon I've been using that for about 30 years now, and you can use that in so many different musical applications, like this one, the next tip, which is to improvise over a chord progression. Here I've got C major 7, D minor 7, F major 7 to G7. This is what it sounds like. I'm going to probably play just some arpeggios, a mode, and then I'll try to make a bass line, which I'll do by playing a lot less. So everything I made up towards the end there was coming from a knowledge of theory, really. What do I play over each of these chords? Over the C major 7, I have the option of an arpeggio, or the underlying mode, which is just the C major scale. And for the other 3 chords, I've got the same thing. I've got the arpeggio and then the mode. And that comes from the exercise I gave you. That's why that's a brilliant one to learn. But then when I played the bass line, I forgot all that stuff because I've learned it. But then I was doing a lot less. There's the C, D, just root notes works. Stuff like that, I can add in some technique. That's a slide, a ghost note. That kind of thing I do a lot. And that's just a C major pentatonic scale. That's because I'm in that key. Those notes work really well connecting things up. I think you work really hard on your theory, you work really hard on a tip that's coming up in the end, and it just expands your ear, expands your creativity. I've switched to this Stingray 5 for this next tip, which is to take an existing bass line you know and move it through different keys. Now, I'll use this as an example because when I was doing lots of function gigs, you know, weddings and corporate stuff and parties, a song that came up a lot was Ain't Nobody by Shaka Khan. You know, the beginning bit goes. That's why, by the way, I love having a 5-string for gigs, because if there's something in a different key like E flat, there's no need to tune down. I can just go to the low E flat and play in that key. Superstition is another great one for that. But there was a particular singer I used to work with who sometimes, right before we were about to play, would change the key because his voice was a bit tired that night. And that's a really hard one, to change key on the fly. So you really need to know how to do that quickly, and it helps with your fretboard knowledge and everything like that. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you wanted to play that song a tone down, that's 2 frets down. Or in A. G. Now the lovely thing about bass is that it's all patterns, so once you've got the pattern under your fingers, all you're doing is just targeting the notes, the new key, and that involves you knowing all the notes up and down your bass fretboard. So that's quite a good thing to practice. Obviously us bass players play bass lines 99% of the time, but why don't you get a melody that you like and try to work that out on the bass? It could be a horn line, it could be a TV theme tune, something from the movies, whatever. That will help your ear tune in to finding a melody and playing it on the bass. No tab, don't use any tab, don't use any YouTube lessons, use your own ear to do that. You'll then link the melody that you're hearing with a scale. You know, lots of melodies use, you know, happy is major, and you might have a different key for a different sound. And you'll learn that when you learn melodies by ear. This is a drone, it's just a long continuous note, in this case C. So you can explore different scales and different tonalities with this going on underneath. Here's a major scale. Now don't forget, you have all these modes in that exercise I gave you earlier that you can download. So if I do Phrygian, but now I play it on C, I get this. This is fantastic for your ear, because you notice that just the addition or the changing of one note changes the mood. Compare this to this. Those are the first 3 notes of C Aeolian. You might know it as C natural minor. But the first 3 notes of C Phrygian, you get that minor second. This is absolutely brilliant for your ears. You learn the sounds that different intervals create. That's the distance between 2 notes. That's what an interval is. There's a minor second. That that was a bit of Mixolydian. I like putting an atmospheric effect over that when I'm practicing. This is quite similar to one of the tips before, but put on a drum loop. Don't forget you can download this one for free, and just make up a bass line specific to that. So if we listen to this, I can hear the kick drum going 2 kicks. I'll keep the notes very simple. I gave you an E, G and an A earlier. Let's just do that. So here I'm more focusing on rhythm than I am notes. Maybe I'll just use 2 E's. Without having to think about notes and going anywhere else, I can focus on timing, and in this case, locking to that kick drum. In this day and age with constant distractions, I mean, if you've got here, you're doing well. Most people will leave a video after 30 seconds, go on to the next thing, or you're watching Netflix, you can't concentrate on what you want to watch, there's too much choice. This kind of thing of just playing one thing, like one groove, just for a long time, it's meditative and it's really, really good for you. So these are my favorite 2 tips to end. And the first one of the last 2 tips is to learn as many bass lines as you can. Now, when I was crafting bass lines out of the modes and the scales and things like that earlier, you might be thinking, well, how are you doing that? And really, the reason I'm doing that is because I've spent years and years working out bass lines and trying to relate those bass lines to, for example, a minor pentatonic scale. That was the big breakthrough for me, learning that pentatonic scale all over the neck, listening to 70s bass lines and funk and realizing that that was what that was. And then I built up from there and got into modes and all kinds of things. But you only get that through context and through listening to bass lines. It could be anything. I mean, go from the beginning, go from James Jamerson to anything that you hear lately. I just randomly heard the new Cure album. I absolutely love it. Simon Gallup is a really fantastic bass player. He doesn't play anything like the way I would play. So I'm studying him. I just love studying different styles, different bass players. It's all the same notes, it's all the same instrument, but there's so many different things you can learn. Finally, have a plan. Think about your goals on bass with your music, write them down, and then carve out some time. So you need to schedule this. You need to work out how much time you have for practice and commit to it. It almost doesn't matter what you practice as long as you do it every day. Now, this is just a few tips that I've given you for this lesson. I've got hundreds of other lessons, and I've got those courses that will give you yet more ideas. Try not to get overwhelmed. Think of a few things, maybe get some 10 songs that you want to learn, and that is your goal. It's very individual to you. Keep working on your technique, keep working on your ear. It's only really a core, central bunch of principles you really need to know, and you'll be up and away with it. So I hope that gave you a few tips, and I hope the next practice session you have can be musical and fun. That's really what it's all about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.